Netflix had a business making $800 million a year from mailing DVDs. Then they did something insane. They killed it on purpose. What happened next created a $300 billion empire. Most companies die trying to protect what they've built. Netflix survived by destroying what they built. This is the story of how a DVD rental company became a streaming giant, then became a production studio, and changed entertainment forever. We're talking about a company that was almost bought by Blockbuster for pennies, and later put Blockbuster out of business. A company that mailed DVDs to your house and convinced you to stop wanting DVDs entirely. A company that spent $17 billion a year creating shows nobody asked for, and somehow made it work. Because here's what's crazy. Netflix reinvented itself not once, not twice, but 3 separate times. And each time, they killed their own successful business to build something bigger. Most CEOs can't make one bold move in their entire career. Reed Hastings made 3 that each could have destroyed Netflix. But instead of destroying them, these moves created the most powerful entertainment company on earth. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how they did it, why everyone said it was impossible, and what it means for every business trying to survive in a world that changes faster every year. Let's start with a famous story everyone knows. In 1997, Reed Hastings got charged a $40 late fee for returning Apollo 13 to Blockbuster 6 weeks late. He was so annoyed that he started Netflix. Except that's not quite what happened. Hastings has admitted in interviews that he made that story up because it sounded good. The truth is messier but more interesting. Reed Hastings was a software entrepreneur who had sold his first company for $750 million. He was rich, bored, and looking for his next thing. His friend Mark Randolph had an idea about renting things by mail. Not movies specifically, just things. They talked about renting all kinds of stuff. Shampoo, baseball bats, dog food. But nothing made sense until DVDs came along. DVDs were new in 1997. They were small, light, and durable. Unlike VHS tapes, you could mail a DVD in a regular envelope without breaking it. Hastings and Randolph tested it. They mailed a DVD to Hastings' house to see if it would survive. It arrived intact. That was the moment Netflix became possible. If the DVD had arrived cracked, Netflix wouldn't exist. The entire company depended on whether DVDs could survive the mail. Netflix launched in 1998 as a website where you could order DVDs and they would ship them to you. You'd watch them, mail them back in a prepaid envelope, and order more. Pretty simple. But there was a problem. Almost nobody owned a DVD player in 1998. DVDs were too new. Most people still use VHS tapes. Netflix was trying to rent a format that barely anyone could watch. They had about 900 customers and were losing money fast. But Hastings and Randolph believed DVDs would take over. They were betting on the future, and they added something clever. Instead of charging late fees like Blockbuster, they created a subscription model. You'd pay a monthly fee and could keep DVDs as long as you wanted. When you were done, you'd mail them back and get new ones. No due dates, no late fees. This was brilliant for 2 reasons. First, customers loved it. No anxiety about returning movies on time. Second, it created predictable revenue. Netflix knew exactly how much money was coming in each month. The subscription model saved Netflix. By 2000, they had switched entirely to subscriptions and gotten rid of the paper rental option. Customers signed up and stayed. The business started working. People loved getting DVDs in the mail. It felt special. The red envelope showing up in your mailbox meant entertainment was here. Netflix made it a brand. The red envelope became iconic. From 2000 to 2005, Netflix grew like crazy. They went from 300,000 subscribers to 4.2 million subscribers. Revenue went from $35 million to $682 million. The company went public in 2002. Everything was working. They had cracked the code on DVD rentals. By mail, they had built warehouses around the country so DVDs could reach most customers in one day. They had a website that was easy to use. They had a recommendation algorithm that suggested movies you might like based on what you'd rented before. This algorithm was a secret weapon. The better their recommendations, the more movies you rented, the more value you got from your subscription. But here's where it gets interesting. While Netflix was growing, they were also scared. Because there was a giant in the room, Blockbuster. Blockbuster had 9,000 stores and 60,000 employees. They were everywhere. Everyone knew the Blockbuster brand. And in 2000, Netflix was tiny and struggling with debt. So Reed Hastings flew to Dallas to meet with Blockbuster's CEO, John Antioco. Hastings proposed a partnership. Blockbuster would promote Netflix in their stores, and Netflix would handle the online rental business. Hastings even offered to sell Netflix to Blockbuster for $50 million. Blockbuster laughed at them. Literally. They thought Netflix was a joke, a niche service for tech nerds. Why would Blockbuster pay $50 million for a company with barely any customers? So they sent Hastings home with nothing. This rejection became legendary because of what happened next. Netflix went on to destroy Blockbuster completely. By 2010, Blockbuster was bankrupt. By 2013, all but a handful of Blockbuster stores were closed. Netflix had killed the giant that rejected them. But it wasn't simple revenge. Netflix won because they understood something Blockbuster didn't. The world was changing. People didn't want to drive to stores. They wanted convenience. They wanted selection. Blockbuster stores could only stock a few thousand movies because of physical space. Netflix could offer 100,000 different titles because they had warehouses, not stores. If you wanted to watch an obscure foreign film from the 1960s, good luck finding it at Blockbuster. But Netflix probably had it. This is classic disruption. Blockbuster was optimized for the old world. Stores in good locations. New releases on the shelves. Late fees to maximize profit. Netflix was optimized for the new world. Convenience. Selection. Technology. Blockbuster tried to fight back. They launched their own mail rental service in 2004. But they were too late and too conflicted. Their stores made money from late fees. Getting rid of late fees hurt their existing business. Blockbuster was trapped trying to protect what they had while Netflix had nothing to protect. They could be aggressive. By 2007, Netflix was dominant in DVD rentals. They had 7.5 million subscribers and were making $1.2 billion a year. They were profitable, growing, and winning. This is when most companies would relax, enjoy the success, optimize what's working. Netflix did the opposite. They started working on something that would destroy their own business. Reed Hastings knew DVDs by mail wouldn't last forever. Internet speeds were getting faster. Computers were getting more powerful. Eventually, people would want to watch movies instantly instead of waiting for them in the mail. Streaming was coming. And Hastings decided Netflix needed to get there first, even if it meant cannibalizing their own DVD business. In January 2007, Netflix launched streaming. It was included free with your DVD subscription. You could watch a limited selection of movies and shows instantly on your computer. The selection was small, maybe 1,000 titles. The quality wasn't great. It buffered constantly. But it was the future, and Netflix knew it. Here's the thing people forget. Streaming was not obviously a good idea in 2007. Netflix was making a ton of money from DVDs. Streaming would cost them a fortune in technology infrastructure and licensing fees. It would confuse customers. It would upset Hollywood studios who liked the DVD business. And it wasn't even clear if internet speeds were fast enough to make streaming work well. Every analyst and expert told Netflix not to do it. Focus on DVDs. That's where the money is. That's what you're good at. Don't mess it up by chasing the streaming thing that might not work. Reed Hastings ignored them all. He saw what was coming. YouTube had launched in 2005 and was showing millions of people that video streaming was possible. Apple was launching the iPhone in 2007, which would make mobile internet mainstream. Hastings believed that within a few years, most people would have internet fast enough for streaming. And he wanted Netflix to own that market before anyone else got there. So Netflix poured money into streaming. They built the technology. They negotiated deals with studios for streaming rights. They marketed streaming to customers. And slowly, it started working. By 2009, Netflix streaming was on Xbox. By 2010, it was on PlayStation, Wii, and smart TVs. By 2011, you could watch Netflix on almost any device with an internet connection. The selection was growing. The quality was improving. People were using it. But there was a tension. Netflix was now running to different businesses. DVDs by mail and streaming. The DVD business was still making most of the money, but streaming was the future. How do you manage that? How do you invest in the future without killing the present? Most companies can't do this. They end up stuck in the middle, doing neither thing well. Netflix's solution was bold and almost destroyed them. In July 2011, Netflix announced they were splitting into two companies. DVDs by mail would be called Quickster. Streaming would keep the Netflix name. They would have separate websites, separate billing, separate everything. If you wanted both, you'd have to pay for the separate subscriptions. Oh, and they were raising prices by 60%. Customers lost their minds. Netflix lost 800,000 subscribers in 3 months. Their stock price dropped 77%. Everyone hated them. Saturday Night Live made fun of them. Customers were furious. Even loyal Netflix fans felt betrayed. The Quickster name was mocked ruthlessly. The whole thing was a disaster. Reed Hastings had to apologize publicly and cancel the Quickster split. They kept everything under the Netflix brand. But the damage was done. Netflix looked arrogant and out of touch, except here's the thing. The strategy was right, even if the execution was terrible. Hastings was trying to separate the old business from the new business, so each could succeed on its own. The price increase was necessary because streaming content was expensive. He just did it in the worst possible way. He didn't explain it well. He didn't ease customers into it. He just announced it and expected people to understand. They didn't. But Netflix survived the Quickster disaster because streaming kept growing. By 2012, people had forgotten about Quickster because Netflix streaming was so good. They had 27 million streaming subscribers in the US. They were in 40 countries. They had streaming deals with most major studios. You could watch thousands of movies and shows instantly. And the DVD business, the thing that had made Netflix successful, was slowly dying. Just like Hastings predicted, DVD subscriptions peaked at 20 million in 2010 and then declined every single year after that. By 2023, Netflix still had a DVD business, but it was tiny. Less than 2 million subscribers. They finally shut it down completely in September 2023. The red envelope was gone. Netflix had successfully transitioned from DVDs to streaming. They had killed their own business and replaced it with something better. But they weren't done, because now they had a new problem. Every other company wanted to be Netflix. When Netflix started streaming, they licensed content from studios, Disney movies, NBC shows, Warner Brothers films. The studios were happy to take Netflix's money. But as Netflix got bigger, studios realized they were helping build a competitor. Why let Netflix have all these subscribers when the studios could stream their own content? So one by one, studios started pulling content from Netflix. Disney announced Disney+. NBC launched Peacock. Warner Brothers created HBO Max. Every studio wanted their own streaming service. Suddenly Netflix faced a crisis. Their entire business was licensing other people's content, and those people were taking their content back. What do you do when you can't license the content people want? You make your own. And that's exactly what Netflix did. In 2011, Netflix announced House of Cards, their first original series. They paid $100 million for 2 seasons. People thought they were crazy. A streaming company making TV shows. That's not how this works. Studios make shows. Netflix just streams them. But Reed Hastings had a different vision. He wanted Netflix to be a studio and a streaming platform. He wanted to control the content so nobody could take it away. House of Cards premiered in February 2013, and it was a massive hit. Netflix released all 13 episodes at once, creating binge-watching. You didn't have to wait a week between episodes. You could watch the whole season in a weekend. This was revolutionary. Network TV had trained people to watch one episode per week for decades. Netflix changed that in one day. People loved it. Binge-watching became a cultural phenomenon. Netflix followed House of Cards with Orange is the New Black, then Stranger Things, then The Crown, then hundreds of other shows and movies. They spent billions creating original content. In 2013, they spent $1 billion on content. By 2019, they were spending $15 billion a year. By 2023, over $17 billion. That's more than most movie studios spend. Netflix was producing movies, TV shows, documentaries, comedy specials, kids shows, foreign language content, everything. They were a production company that happened to have a streaming platform. This strategy had huge advantages. Original content couldn't be taken away by studios. It differentiated Netflix from competitors. It gave them content they could stream in every country without licensing issues. Stranger Things became a global phenomenon. Squid Game, a Korean show, became one of the most watched series in Netflix history. Netflix was producing content in dozens of languages for audiences everywhere. They were thinking globally in a way traditional studios never had. But original content was expensive and risky. For every Stranger Things, there were 5 shows that nobody watched. Netflix was spending billions on content that sometimes flopped. They were taking huge risks, and they had to keep spending because competitors were spending too. Disney Plus, HBO Max, Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV Plus, everyone was pouring money into streaming. It became an arms race. Whoever had the best content would win subscribers. Whoever had the most subscribers would make the most money. But you needed to spend money to make content to get subscribers to make money. It was a cycle that required enormous amounts of cash. Netflix funded this by taking on debt. Billions in debt. By 2020, Netflix had $16 billion in debt. Critics said this was unsustainable. They said Netflix was a house of cards, ironically. They said once the debt came due, Netflix would collapse. But Hastings kept spending because he believed if Netflix could get big enough fast enough, they'd become too powerful to fail. They'd have so many subscribers paying monthly that they could fund content creation forever. It was a bet the company's strategy. Go big or go home. And it worked. By 2021, Netflix had 222 million subscribers worldwide. They were in almost every country on Earth. They were generating $30 billion in revenue. They were finally profitable enough that they didn't need to keep borrowing. They had won the first phase of the streaming wars. They were the biggest streaming service by far. Disney Plus was growing fast, but Netflix had a huge lead. But then 2020 hit and everything changed. For the first time in a decade, Netflix lost subscribers. In Q1 2022, they lost 200,000 subscribers. In Q2, they lost another 970,000. Suddenly, Netflix wasn't unstoppable. Their stock price dropped 75%. People started asking if Netflix's best days were behind them. Had they peaked? Was growth over? The problem was competition and saturation. In the US and Europe, almost everyone who wanted streaming already had it. There weren't many new customers to get, and those customers had options now. Disney Plus, HBO Max, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus. People were picking and choosing. Some months they'd subscribe to Netflix. Other months they'd cancel and watch something else. This was called churn, and it was killing growth. Netflix had to adapt again. They did 2 things people said they'd never do. First, they launched an ad-supported tier. For years, Netflix said they'd never have ads. Ads ruined the experience. Netflix was premium. But in November 2022, they launched a cheaper subscription with ads. It was $6.99 a month instead of $15.49. This brought in customers who thought Netflix was too expensive. It also brought in advertising revenue. By 2023, the ad tier had 15 million subscribers, not huge, but growing. Second, Netflix cracked down on password sharing. For years, Netflix let people share accounts with family and friends. Everyone did it. Netflix knew and didn't care because they were growing anyway. But when growth stopped, password sharing became a problem. Netflix estimated 100 million households were using Netflix without paying. That was lost revenue. So in 2023, Netflix started forcing people to pay if they wanted to share outside their household. You could add extra members for a few dollars more per month, or those people had to get their own accounts. Everyone predicted this would backfire. People would cancel and protest. But Netflix was right. Most password sharers either started paying or the account owner added them. As paid extra members, Netflix added millions of new paying subscribers. Turns out people valued Netflix enough to pay for it even when they've been getting it free. Revenue went up. Subscriber growth returned. By late 2023, Netflix was growing again and their stock price recovered. Netflix had survived another transition, from licensing content to creating content, from pure subscription to subscription plus ads, from allowing password sharing to requiring payment. Each change was controversial each time. People said Netflix was making a mistake each time. Netflix was proven right. They understood their business and their customers better than critics did. Let's talk about why Netflix succeeded where others failed. Blockbuster failed because they couldn't change. They were trapped by their existing business. Netflix succeeded because they were willing to destroy their existing business to build the next one. DVDs were working. Kill them for streaming. Licensing was working. Replace it with originals. Subscription only was working. Add ads. No password enforcement was working. Crackdown. Netflix was never sentimental about what worked. They were always focused on what would work next. This came from Reed Hastings. He built a culture at Netflix around making bold bets and changing fast. Netflix famously has no vacation policy. Employees take as much time as they need. They have no expense policy. Spend what's appropriate for the company. This sounds chaotic, but it creates responsibility. Employees are treated like adults who can make good decisions. This attracted top talent and made Netflix nimble. Decisions that took months at other companies took days at Netflix. Netflix also had a famous culture document that laid out their values. One key phrase was adequate performance gets a generous severance. They didn't want adequate. They wanted excellent. If you were just okay at your job, Netflix would pay you to leave so they could hire someone great. This sounds harsh, but it kept the talent level high. Everyone at Netflix was good at what they did because the mediocre people were politely shown the door. Another Netflix principle was context, not control. Managers gave context about what needed to happen and why, but didn't micromanage how it happened. Employees had freedom to make decisions. This created innovation. When you trust people and give them autonomy, they do creative things. Netflix's recommendation algorithm, their streaming technology, their production strategy, all came from employees who had freedom to experiment. The recommendation algorithm deserves special attention because it's a huge part of why Netflix works. Netflix doesn't just have content. They have a system that shows you content you'll probably like. 80% of what people watch on Netflix comes from recommendations, not from people searching. The algorithm learns what you like based on what you watch, how long you watch it, what you rate, what time of day you watch, everything. Then it suggests things similar. This keeps people engaged. The longer you use Netflix, the better it gets at knowing what you want. This creates lock-in. Switching to a different service means starting over with an algorithm that doesn't know you. Netflix's global expansion is another key to their success. They didn't just dominate the US and call it done. They went everywhere. By 2016, Netflix was in 190 countries. They created content in dozens of languages. Money Heist from Spain became a global hit. Squid Game from Korea broke records. Sacred Games from India was huge. Netflix understood that good stories work everywhere if you remove language barriers with subtitles and dubbing. They spent money creating local content in almost every market. This gave them a massive content library that no regional competitor could match. The technology Netflix built is also underappreciated. Streaming video to millions of people simultaneously is incredibly hard. You need massive servers, fast networks, complex encoding, adaptive bitrate streaming so quality adjusts to your internet speed. Netflix invested billions in this technology. They even created their own content delivery network called OpenConnect. They put servers inside internet service providers, so content was physically closer to users. This made streaming faster and cheaper. Most streaming services license this technology from third parties. Netflix built it themselves, giving them better control and lower costs long term. Let's talk about Netflix's mistakes because they're important to understand. The Quickster disaster was one. Pricing increases have caused subscriber losses multiple times. They've canceled popular shows too early, making fans angry. They've greenlit shows that bombed and cost hundreds of millions. They've faced criticism for inconsistent content quality. Some Netflix originals are incredible, others are unwatchable. When you're producing hundreds of shows a year, not everything will be great. But it damages the brand when people associate Netflix with mediocre content. Netflix has also faced criticism for how they treat filmmakers. They spend huge budgets but give limited theatrical releases because they want content on the platform, not in theaters. This frustrates directors who want their films on big screens. Major filmmakers like Steven Spielberg have criticized Netflix for undermining cinema. Netflix argues they're democratizing filmmaking by funding projects traditional studios won't. Both sides have valid points. The data Netflix collects raises privacy concerns. They know everything you watch, when you watch it, when you pause, when you rewind, when you stop watching. This data helps them create better recommendations and better content. But it's also surveillance. Netflix knows your viewing habits better than you do. They use this data to decide what shows to make. If data shows viewers love true crime, they make more true crime. This is efficient, but can create homogenized content optimized for algorithms rather than artistic vision. Netflix's impact on culture is massive. Binge-watching changed how we consume TV. Shows are now written for binge-watching, with cliffhangers every episode instead of just its season ends. The phrase Netflix and chill entered the language. Netflix originals like Stranger Things and The Crown generate huge cultural conversations. Releasing entire seasons at once means everyone can watch and discuss together, instead of waiting weeks between episodes. This creates zeitgeist moments that old TV delivery couldn't match. Netflix also changed Hollywood's economics. Streaming doesn't have box office numbers or Nielsen ratings. Netflix keeps viewership data private. This makes it hard to know what's a hit. Actors and creators who used to get paid based on how well something performed now get paid flat fees because there is no transparent success metrics. This has caused tension. Scarlett Johansson sued Disney when Black Widow went to streaming because her contract paid bonuses based on box office. Streaming undermines that whole model. The future of Netflix is about staying ahead as competition intensifies. Disney Plus has 150 million subscribers. Amazon Prime Video is huge. HBO Max has premium content. YouTube is eating time people might spend on Netflix. TikTok is stealing attention from younger viewers. Netflix needs to keep people subscribed in a world with infinite entertainment options. Their strategy is clear. Keep creating must-watch content so people can't cancel. Add gaming to give subscribers more value. Expand international content so they're relevant everywhere. Improve technology so the experience is seamless. Crack down on account sharing so every viewer pays offer ads so price-sensitive customers can afford it. One interesting move is gaming. Netflix added mobile games to subscriptions in 2021. You can download Netflix games on your phone free if you're a subscriber. They've released dozens of games based on their shows and original games. It's early, but the strategy makes sense. Gaming keeps people engaged with Netflix even when they're not watching shows. It adds value to the subscription. It creates another revenue opportunity if gaming takes off. Netflix is thinking beyond video to become a broader entertainment company. Netflix's effect on traditional media can't be overstated. Cable TV is dying. People cut the cord and subscribe to streaming. Movie theaters are struggling because people prefer watching at home. DVD and Blu-ray sales collapsed. Video rental stores are extinct except for one remaining Blockbuster in Oregon. That's now a tourist attraction. Netflix didn't do all this alone, but they led the charge. They showed that streaming could replace everything that came before. The economics of streaming are still being figured out. Netflix is profitable now, but many competitors are not. Disney Plus loses billions per year. HBO Max restructured entirely. Paramount Plus and Peacock struggle. The streaming wars cost tens of billions, and it's unclear if there is room for everyone. The likely outcome is consolidation. Services will merge or shut down. Maybe we end up with 3. Or for major streamers, Netflix will almost certainly be one of them because they have scale, content, and a head start. Reed Hastings stepped down as CEO in January 2023, handing control to Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters as co-CEOs. Hastings remains executive chairman. This transition is significant because Hastings was Netflix. His vision drove every major decision for 25 years, but he built a leadership team and culture strong enough to continue without him. Time will tell if Netflix can maintain its edge with new leaders. But the signs are good. The strategy is clear. The execution is strong. The business model works. Netflix's story is about courage. The courage to kill a successful business because you see something better coming. The courage to spend billions on content when everyone says you're crazy. The courage to raise prices and crack down on password sharing when it makes customers angry. The courage to change your entire business model 3 separate times in 20 years. Most companies don't have this courage. They optimize what works until it stops working. Then they die. Netflix did the opposite. They destroyed what worked before it stopped working. They moved to streaming while DVDs were still profitable. They created originals while licensing was still working. They added ads while pure subscription was still growing. This willingness to cannibalize themselves, to disrupt themselves before someone else did, is why Netflix survived when Blockbuster died. It's why they're worth $300 billion while competitors struggle. Reed Hastings and Netflix prove that the biggest risk isn't changing too fast. It's changing too slow. In a world where technology and consumer behavior shift constantly, standing still is death. Netflix never stood still. They changed the world by daring to kill their own business over and over again. And every time they killed it, they built something bigger from the ashes. That's not just business strategy. That's vision. Executed relentlessly for a quarter century. The red envelope is gone, but what Netflix built in its place changed entertainment forever. Find out which streaming giant is secretly bleeding money and why their days might be numbered.